All right, so I want to talk about all the different types of sprint training. And I've got, at the top here, I've got traditional because it's not traditional, but I'm proposing that we do make it traditional terminology. And I'll elaborate on that now. But for now, what's pretty common is that we've got acceleration, top speed, and speed endurance training. And then we've got gym chucked in here somewhere. And typically, acceleration counts as anything from 0 to 20. But in reality, what we've got is, and this is at least how I separate it, is we've got blocks, should put block exits, starts, and then I'll term acceleration as everything from about 5 to 30. The starts for me is really everything from 2 to 8 meters. And then the blocks is really the first 2 meters. And so largely influenced by the first 2 steps, largely influenced from steps 2 through to 4. And then XL, we kind of get the late end of this. But I separate these more importantly into 3 categories, the same way that these are separated. These are separated because they require different training approaches that vary quite greatly from each other. Now, that's still the same from this. And so these are 3 different training approaches. And so for me, I categorize them as 3 different things. And so you can start to see the problem, at least with acceleration. If I just say I'm doing acceleration training, the stuff that I'm doing is not going to necessarily cross over to all 3 aspects here. And so I need to address these separately. How you go about that's really up to you. For me, I always like to do things in a sequence. So if you've seen or you know more about how I approach my training, I call it sequential development. And I always develop the greatest physical and technical need simultaneously side by side. And I do that for each of these aspects. So as we get to top speed, typically that's 30 to 60 meters. It's pretty much just termed on the idea that you would hit, majority of people would hit top speed within this category from here. Now this is fine, like for top speed, I will pretty much approach this the same. It's just that if I have someone that hits top speed at 30 meters, then I will train really 30 or just above that. If someone hits top speed at 30, if I'm training them for 60s, I'm starting to train something different. So it's just this is just getting specific based on where someone hits max velocity. So maybe it's more about max velocity. So once you understand where someone hits that, then you're just training that spot. And now the only variation for me here is that I'll adjust it based on conditions. Different conditions will make you hit max velocity at different points. And so I will adjust from there. Now, speed endurance, I put broad because this is probably our biggest problem with sprint categorization and the biggest reason why I would suggest that we need a change, because speed endurance, like it can't just be everything that's not this. And so we have sprinters doing, let's say, anything 80% or like sub-maximal runs, so tempo runs or whatever you want to call them. So let's just put like people doing tempo runs. Then we've got like you could be doing 120s, people could be doing 300s, even though they're a sprinter. Anything stretched out beyond their event. So let's just say we're talking about everything under the 200-meter sprint and the training methods that people will do for that. So anything around here, even with these is really going to be something short of 100% efforts. And then, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but I mean, I do see the extreme cases of this, people just doing flat out endurance training, so like longer runs and count that as speed endurance. I'll leave that out there just for common sense that obviously we're getting into something completely different. Problem with these things here for speed endurance, I think it's just the term here is it doesn't make sense. It's not specific enough. And so really what I think should happen here is we have a category of holding top speed, which is really what sprinters want from speed endurance. But this is different. So we have holding top speed, and then we have endurance training. And so and then maybe even as we go for endurance, so your longer sprints, everything from the 400 meter up, I think it would be fair to say you're doing speed endurance, meaning we keep endurance because there's an endurance aspect, but we're pushing the speed above what our comp speed would be like normally. So if you're a 400 meter runner and you're working on, let's say, just holding 90% on 2 to 300s, maybe you count that as your speed endurance. And I think that's pretty fair. But this is where, like, this term here if this is what you want, holding top speed, then that's what we want to train. And if we're doing anything that's under 100% effort, then we're not going to reach top speed, and then we're never training the ability to actually hold top speed. So assuming that something like this would develop your capacity to hold top speed better is just crazy. Like, if you don't ever touch it, you're never actually practicing holding that. And so that's how I would change. I just literally would change this entirely. So I would rule out, if we're just exclusively talking about sprinters, I would rule this out to, we're literally going to take this out, and this becomes holding top speed. All right, and then we can go categorizations of, historically, I don't think anyone's really held top speed for more than 30 meters. World-class sprinters may get like 10 to 20 meters. Just put that in perspective, and they're obviously training these qualities and they're very good at it. So holding top speed, we could say training the ability to hold top speed for 20 meters would be kind of the shorter end, and then maybe you're training the longer end. So some sort of range from there. Once we start to look into this as a new category, we can start to get training tools that are far more specific for this. So for example, just to say outright, within my system, I actually really don't care about this until this is good enough. And so if you're still slow, we just need to get fast. So I don't want to focus on this if you don't have the right speed in the first place. The more we spread your interest across the board, the less we progress each element. And so I'd rather put a much greater emphasis on this, come back to this in the later terms. But for the sake of this video, I'm just saying if we change the categorization here, so this is now holding top speed, we can develop tools that are far more specific for getting what we wanted. So people doing speed endurance, but they really want holding top speed. Imagine if we did, for example, like a low assisted pull, and then you're running, say, 80 meters, and the conditions are good. So say you hit top speed at about 50 meters, and then you're required to hold that for an additional 30. Either way, what we get is a stimulus where for this last part of the rep, you're holding a speed that is greater than what you would be able to achieve otherwise, slightly above what your current max velocity is. That right there would be an unbelievable way to develop the capacity to hold top speed. Compare that to what we said before, like imagine doing like a 300 at like 80%. Like, what do you think is going to work better for developing the capacity to hold top speed? It seems pretty obvious, but again, we're going to kind of get stumped on the categorization. That's why I propose that we take this to traditional terminology, and we start shifting this to be very specific to what we want, and then we can start discussing tools that are more specific, developing each of these aspects as well.